We are in module 3, extrusion. We are trying to mesh the geometries using the process of extrusion in this module. For this particular video, the geometry which we are going to consider will have 3 cylinders connected end on end. So the 3 cylinders are connected end on end. This is the same geometry which we meshed in module 2, but there we followed the top-down approach where we initialized the block for the whole geometry and then did the splits. But here we will follow the extrusion approach. So you will understand where the difference is and what are the benefits and drawbacks of each method. So this is the geometry, as you might have already covered this geometry in module 2. We will, as for this approach, the extrusion approach, we will initialize the blocking with this base geometry, the centermost cylinder, the largest cylinder, that will serve as our base geometry, where the blocking will be initialized. And as there are cylinders attached to it, so there will be 3 O grids in this block. One O grid will capture the larger cylinder, another O grid will capture the geometry of the smaller cylinder, and the third O grid, as you know, will improve the quality of the mesh. So there will be 3 O grids. Uh, but the point to note is that we will create all 3 O grids first in the base geometry itself and then extrude the O grids to match the cylindrical faces at the ends. So the O grids will be created in the base geometry itself and then the faces will be extruded. And also please note that we will extrude only those phases which will be required on the cylinder. So this will thus there will not be any need for deletion of blocks in this approach. In the approach of extrusion, we will skip the method of deletion of blocks. It won't be required because we will be extruding only the necessary faces only. So let's go on to the ICM GUI now. ICM GUI. This is what the ICM GUI looks like. For the convenience, I have already created the parts. These parts are same as the one for the other in module 2. This is cylinder 1, this is cylinder 2, and this is the main cylinder. And then we have the inlet and the outlet and wall 2 and wall 3. All the curves have been grouped together in the same part, so have been the points. So let's initialize the block. So this is not for this in the extrusion process. We will initialize the block for only for the base geometry, which in this case we have identified to be the central cylinder. So we'll initialize the block only for the central cylinder. Let's do that. And then we press middle click, say apply. So the block has been associated and initialized only for the central cylinder. So this is the block associated. Now please note that since there will be extrusion, so we'll extrude here and here. But before extrusion, we want to make sure that we want to create a replica of the eventual face in the base geometry itself. For both the extrusions, we will the face which will be created ultimately here should be first replicated in the base geometry itself. So to replicate the faces, we'll need to create the O grids. So let's create the first O grid to capture the larger of the 2 cylinders. So this O grid will capture the larger of the 2 cylinders, and then we need another O grid to capture the smaller of the 2 cylinders. So we'll create an O grid in the inner block. Say apply, and then we create even one more O grid to capture the to improve the quality. So this will go in the in the innermost block here, and then say, and this face is here and here, and say apply. So we have been able to create 3 O grids. This is the larger cylinder, and this is the smaller one. So before we extrude, we will do the associations. So we go to association, associate edge to curve. So the outermost cylinder, that is the largest cylinder, will be associated with the outermost block on both the faces. And for the bigger cylinder here, we will associate the outermost O grid block on this face. That's done. But on this face, we won't associate the outermost O grid, because this won't capture the smaller cylinder. It's only there to capture the larger cylinder. And to capture the smaller cylinder, we will associate the centermost and the central O grid. I mean this. Please see my cursor, the position of my cursor. This O grid will be associated to this cylinder to capture the curvature of this cylinder, to capture the geometry of this cylinder. And this O grid will not be associated on this face, because this O grid is for the larger cylinder on the other face. So we have done the association for this face here, and then for the larger cylinder here. So let's do the extrusion. So for the larger cylinder here, before we associate, let's so this is our association. We will do the extrusion. So before we associate, let us do the projection. Let's project the vertices. So we apply. So what faces should we extrude here? The face, if you remember, the faces for this larger cylinder, we have it's associated with the outermost O grid. So we will extrude all the faces of the O grid. So these are the faces here of the outermost O grid, and then of the central O grid, and then the innermost O grid. So all the faces of the O grid we are extruding. We are only not extruding the faces of the main block. So all the faces of the O grid here we are extruding for the larger of the two cylinders. And then we say middle click to confirm, and then extrude curve here. Extrude endpoint is here. Let's say apply. So you see now the association looks very good here. I mean the topology has been captured by extrusion. Now we come to this end for extrusion here. The thing to note here is that here the outer O grid won't be extruded, because it's not used to capture the geometry of this face. It's used to capture the geometry of the cylinder on this face here. So if we won't extrude the outer O grid, and we won't certainly not extrude the outer block itself and the outer O grid. So we will extrude only the central O grid and the innermost face. So these five faces we will extrude and then say. So you see, we have captured the geometry here as well. But here we didn't extrude the outermost O grid. So one, two, three. There are only five faces here on the same surface. But here we extruded the outermost O grid as well. So 5 plus 4, 9 faces have been extruded here. So after we are done extruding, we will do the association here for the faces which have just been created. This includes. So this is the face which was just created due to extrusion, and we are doing the association for this. Then we say apply. So you see our block topology has been created very nicely. I mean, with just some extrusion, we have been able to capture the block very nicely. And then we can go ahead and do the. We can give the parameters on the nodes, parameters on the edges. I am sorry. So we are just assigning the parameters everywhere. So yes, the parameters have been assigned. And pre-mesh. So let me check in solid and wire. So it seems that we have been able to capture very well the topology, and the mesh looks fine as well. So this is how we can use extrusion to mesh geometries of this type. As a last check, let's do a pre-quality histogram, and we see the beautiful angles here. The minimum angle is almost 45, so that's amazing. So we can scale the mesh by a factor of 2. Say do apply and yes, and even then we won't see any change in angle. So that means The mesh quality is perfect. So that's how we use O-grid. That's how we use extrusion to mesh these kind of geometries. Thank you.